Frances. Mr. Colong.
Present, ma'am.
Constantino. And last time, section ninyo, sa Ateneo tayo nag-end, or nag-end tayo dito sa first romance. So, tapos natin to first romance.
Tapos naman ata ang first romance, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you. So that means that we are going to proceed with the UST. Okay, so let's begin, no? So let me record this conference. So hopefully maaga tayo matapos para early tayo ng lunch. So let's resume with the week 7 lesson in the academic life of our national hero. So after taking the course of Bachelor in Artes, no, in Ateneo, the father of Rizal decided that he would proceed, no, his parang professional course in UST. So he took philosophy and letters during his freshman year, no. So mahaba din ng time ng leisure time ni Rizal that time, that he also made use of his time wisely. So he took another course, no, I mean, this is simultaneous while studying in UST, nag-take din po siya ng course, a vocational course, 2-year course in Ateneo that gave him the title Expert Surveyor or Perito Agrimensor. Tama ba? Perito Agrimensor. So, paano naging doctor si Jose Rizal if ang course pala na tinake niya ay philosophy and letters? So, he shifted from the philosophy and letters to the course in medicine. So, naging medical student rin si Rizal, katulad po ninyo. So, bakit ba nga ba siya nag-shift? Number 1, because he learned about the failing eyesight of his mother. Another reason is that there is shortage in the number of doctors in their town. So Rizal also wanted to contribute to his society, but that's why he wanted to become a doctor. Even if, no, he was more better in taking philosophy and letter than in taking medicine. No, mas nag-excel po siya, mas forte niya po talaga yung philosophy and letters kesa sa medicine. But because of this feeling of he felt the need, no, for taking this course because people are dependent, people would benefit from it. So he took the course medicine. Okay, so kamusta ba ang academic performance ni Rizal nang siya ay nag-aaral sa UST? I-compare natin siya sa pag-aaral niya sa Ateneo, no? Mag-expect ka talaga na malaki sa kanya because all of his grades are sobresaliente. Baka ano na yun siya, no? Summa cum laude, no? So, ayan. So, let's try to check ang iyang academic performance. So, this is not for you to memorize, ha? We're just showing this to you so that you would have an idea how Rizal went through his academic life in UST, taking the medical course. Okay, so, di ba kanina yung first year sa Rizal, he took the philosophy and letters, no? Kasi nga, yung preparatory course niya before ay Bachelor in Artes. So, it's about philosophy, literature, psychology, no? So, more on writing talaga, related talaga sila. So, all of his grades in that first year were all sobresaliente. No, flat 1 siya lahat. No, pero nung nag-take na siya ng medicine, nag-shift siya sa medicine, doon na nag-start na nag-change ang mga grades ni Rizal. Na nag-aprovechado na siya in some of the preparatory courses in medicine. So, mapansin ninyo, 3 or 4 lang po ang subjects nila per year. Yes po, per year po ito. So, malaki talaga yung time nila to do some other things. But we need to also consider that during their time kasi, lahat ay manual ginagawa. No? So, manually nila ginagawa ang lahat, even pag sa study, no? Pagbabasa ng books. So, there was no before advancements na experience natin ngayon. Okay, so ngayon kasi ang dami ng mga fill-in na mga subjects, may minor subjects na tayo, may mga elective subjects pa. So, though it's a good thing for them, no, na makapag-focus sila sa major subjects nila, but the disadvantage is that their students will not be well-rounded. no? Hindi siya multifaceted or hindi po siya disciplinary, no? Walang ibang subjects dito, no? Puro lang lahat major subjects. Okay, so mas mataas pa ba yung grade nyo kay Rizal? Na pag sinabi kong lahat ng grades niya ay bueno or 2.0 daw ang numerical equivalent niya, no? Sa mga subjects na ito. No? So, you can now boast na mas magaling pa kayo kay Rizal, no? Kasi nga, he got this bueno grade for these subjects. Yan. So, you can boast, no? You can boast, but don't be boastful. Anyways, so si Rizal po naka-experience din po siya magkaroon ng grade na aprobado or ang numerical equivalent niya ay 3. No? So, nag-3 din po ba kayo sa pathology? Okay, so, ayan, if mas pataas yung grades niyo, so you feel proud, no? Na, pero kasi sa panahon ni Rizal, lahat naman ay manual ginagawa. Okay? And it was not yet that developed. So, for the GWA, no, he got the 1.595 na GWA for all his subject. But still, despite this, he was one of the 7 students, no, who remained in their course. Matibay pala sila that time, no. In his last year of UST, out of the original 24 students sila. So, mahirap pala talaga mag-take ng medical course sa UST. That time, no? Kasi out of 24, 7 lang talaga silang nakapasa. No? 7 lang talaga sila nag-graduate. Okay, so what may be the reasons why Rizal enjoyed his academic life more in Ateneo than in UST? So we have here some various reasons to explain that. So number one, the hostility of the Dominican professors to him. So many of the Dominican professors didn't like Rizal. Number one, because he came from a school managed by the Jesuits. So, magkaiba kasi sila ng orders, no? Ang Dominicans at saka yung mga Jesuits. Yung mga Jesuits, sila yung nagmamanage ng Ateneo. So, dahil galing nga siya sa Ateneo, medyo mainit ang dugo nila kay Rizal. And also, because, no, they also have hint, no? Or naging suspicious si Rizal sa kanila dahil sobrang niyang matinino pagdating sa hindi naman siya sa medicine, no? Pero sa mga political ideas maybe, no? So, no, for some reasons, they are not really good, no, towards Rizal. Next is racial discrimination against the Filipino students. So, ito mas pinapaboran nila yung mga peninsulares at saka mga insulares na mga estudyante kaysa sa mga native Filipinos. So, racial discrimination is rampant sa UST, kaya hindi nagustuhan yun ni Rizal. Next is dissatisfaction with the method of instruction. So, ano ba yung method of instruction nila before? It was very archaic, no? Very old-fashioned, very old style of teaching, stagnant style of teaching, no? Highly memorization, no? Individualized memorization. Students will become bookish, no? Rather than enthusiastic, rather than imaginative, that they are really bounded lang in the limitation of the books, no? So ayun. And also he performed poorly in UST because medicine is not his vocation, no? Dahil napilitan lang siya. And also distractions of the youth. Ano tong distractions of the youth? No, naglaroy-laroy ba si Rizal, ma'am? No, distracted ba siya sa kanyang studies? So he joined some barkada, no, he joined some Brotherhood of Men. So he joined yung mga activist groups, no, not really into rally, no, hindi naman sila ganoon mag-activism dati, more on writing, na peaceful naman na activism dati, kasi nga it was illegal to do so. Unlike today, very expressive, no, very democratic ang mga social movements natin ngayon. That did you know in UP, no, if it's there, if there is a call for rally, no, kahit nagkaklase pa ng teacher dira, UP na yun ha, yung mga professors doon hindi basta-basta, pero kahit nagtuturo yung teacher dyan, yung professor, but if it's a call for rally, students will leave the classroom and will join the rally. Yeah, no, so I'm not telling this to influence you all to do the same, but to respect your elderly naman, no? And also, rallying is not the only way to do activism, no, and it's not the only way to speak out your mind and to promote your campaign or whatever advocacy you have. There are a lot of ways that are more peaceful and that are more ideal. Okay, so we can challenge. Jose Rizal actually is telling us to challenge the government, but that is not the ideal way to challenge the government. The best way to challenge the government is to be informed of the be informed of all your rights, no? Be informed of your rights and to present them with respect, because how will we be able to res- how will we expect the government to respect our voices if we cannot do it in a respectful way, no? So, yun, it's we cannot give what we don't have, and also respect is gained, no, and it's not being provoked. 'Di ba sa PBB 'yon? Ang respeto, ginigain yan, hindi yan pinoprovoke, no? So, ayun, share ko lang. And so that's the end of the week 7 lesson, no? Why Rizal didn't like in UST and why he didn't perform very well in UST. But if you would ask UST, no, if that's true, they would of course deny that, because they will prove some evidence. They will prove it with some evidences that Rizal had really had a good time naman in UST. No? Pero ito kasi yung mga sinasabi ng mga libro, ng mga literatures. Okay? Okay. So, ngayon, for our week 8 lesson, ayan. So, ito ay magkasunod, no? Magkatuhog sila ng week 9 lesson. Because the last one, yung sa week 8 natin, di ba 3 weeks lang for the life of Rizal, particularly in his academic life. Dalawa lang sa academic life niya. So, yung sa week 8 po, it's more of the propaganda movement of Jose Rizal, no? And also sa week 9. So, sa week 8, matatouch din dito yung student activities and student activism in Spain. So, Dr. Jose Rizal's, text lang po ito lahat ha. So, reading lang po ito. So, babasahin lang po natin. And then, of course, I will explain it for you guys. Ayan. So, Dr. Jose Rizal's experiences as a student of of UST was unpleasant, so much that after his 4th year in UST, he decided to study in Spain because he was fed up with the bigotry that prevailed in that school. So this chapter will discuss Rizal's higher education and life abroad, and you will also learn about the propaganda movement, Rizal's growth as a propagandist, and his relationship with other propagandists. No? So, ano ba experiences ni Rizal nung siya ay nag-join ng La Solidaridad? Okay, so for today's objectives, we will be guided by the following. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to first discuss student activism in Spain. Second, to explain the propaganda movement and how it inspired nationalism among Filipinos. Yes po. Nabuo po ito sa Spain, pero ang na-inspire po nila ay ang mga Pilipino. And lastly, to explain how the Noli Me Tangere contributed to the Filipino national consciousness. So with that, after this lesson, you need to prepare for the Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo na mga summaries. Okay? You may read ahead of time so that hindi na kayo mahirapan kapag yun na yung lesson natin. Okay, so student activities in Spain, student activism in Spain. So for our introduction, let me read it for you guys. So I hope a huge portion of Europe was illiterate in 1880s. Education was poor and its quality was very low. Though improvements were blooming in Europe, the education system was awful. The primary and secondary schools were stuck in their old and ineffective ways of teaching. Students were forced to be bookish rather than be enthusiastic, and all was dependent on memorization alone. Ito po yung sa Spain. Okay, nakalagay dito Europe siya. So, ito po yung karanasan ng mga teachers or mga friars sa Pilipinas nung sila pa ay nag-aaral. So, you cannot the message here is really you cannot give what you don't have. Kasi kung ano yung natanggap nila, kung ano yung kinonsume nila when they were still students, yun din po yung napasa nila sa mga estudyante nila sa Pilipinas. Yung mga fires po ng mga teachers sa Pilipinas, nung sila ay mga estudyante, they were also dependent upon books and they dependent on memorization alone. Nung sila ay naging teacher, ganun din po yung ginawa nila sa kanila. But more of that will be shared after we end this conference and return using the same link and the same meeting ID because I only have less than a minute. So, rejoin muna tayo.
May ginagawa pa si ate. Mamaya.
Okay, so, ayun po, ganun po siya ka-problematic yung kanilang learning method before. That's why when they also teach in the Philippines, the student also suffered with this same problem. So here, ano ba yung itsura ano ba yung idea na binibigay sa atin ng reading na ito towards their instruction? So first is their instructors. Numerous professors of universities had 2 jobs and were far more focused on their political career than in their teaching careers. So remember, the teachers were the friars, and the friars before have multiple functions. Diba na-discuss natin si Cura Parroco, aka the parish priest before, aside from being the clergyman, no, being the preacher, no, being the spiritual advisor, no, meron po siya other na functions such as the administrative and political as well as the social functions, no? Siya pa nagpa-facilitate during the election, social services, social and welfare na mga activities, and also sila din po yung teachers. So, some of them has multiple functions aside from teaching. So, they are more focused on those careers, especially the political one, no, than in teaching, no? So, they misprioritize the teaching career. That's why the studies and the academic life of the students as well were in the backwardness. So in general, universities in 1867 to 1868 and 1865 were behind. By the way, in this class we don't memorize dates, so don't worry about those 1800s na mga numbers dyan. And a few people so na only few people could afford to send their child to school. So churches back then had made efforts to exclude religious teachings from the schools as well. So majority of the in the curriculum are religious, no? 'Di ba na pag-aralan din natin yung tatlong compulsory, no? Ano yung compulsory? Compulsory po yung pag-teach ng Spanish language. Pero yung number 1 po doon ay ang Christian doctrine, no? For them to be converted to Christianity, to promote Christianity, and also to learn the Spanish culture. So, outside of those, no, hindi siya hina-highlight sa curriculum nila. Unlike today na marami tayong mga nalalaman, no, na hindi naman siya sakop ng religious teachings. As a matter of fact, para sa school natin wala tayong RE. 'Di ba? Sa mga Catholic school meron silang religious education or religion or education. Para sa school natin wala tayong RE, no? Meron tayong ethics lang. So, hence, the educational advancement was hard to attain. Okay. Lang. Bakit may mga estudyante pa hindi pa na-admit? Okay. Lang sa mga chat natin, nag-chat yung classmates ninyo. Ayan. May mahirapan kasi magpasok. Anyways, ayan. So, the educational advancement was hard to attain because because of the limitation lang, no, na limitation sa kung anong tinuturo ng mga teachers in school. So the churches held a tantamount of power, and they were influential, leaving the Spanish universities stagnant and old style. So they were the managers of the school that time, no? Kaya yung kung anong tinuturo nila, it will leave the students behind, no? Paulit-ulit na lang yung tinuturo nila kasi hindi naman nagbabago yung doctrines, hindi naman nagbabago yung religious teachings. So these have prevented the students from acquiring greater knowledge than the parishes. So it's like greed ba, no? It's like pride na hindi nila gusto na mas maging enlightened yung next generation kesa sa kanila. Because if that will so, no, kapag mas naging enlightened yung mga students, they will be questioning the mandates of the church and its defective ruling. Pero itong church po na sinasabi natin na Catholic Church, ito po ay contexted lang po sa panahon nila sa 1800s. Hindi po siya contexted sa panahon natin ngayon. So, just a reminder. So, which also has somehow lessened the chances of vote. So, ayaw nila na kalabanan sila ng mga estudyante. Kaya, puro religious ay tinuturo sa mga estudyante. Wag muna yung mga political na yan, no? Wag muna yung mga other enlightenment na mga ideas, no? Because it will make them more enlightened than us, no? So, pero nung pumunta si Rizal sa Spain para mag-aral, no? Nag-iba na po ang setting doon. Okay? And he was so lucky that time. And his departure pala was a secret, no? Hindi nila pinaalam sa mother ni Rizal na mag-a-abroad siya. Ang tanging nakakaalam lang of his departure was his father, and also Pasiano. No, tatlo lang sila. Tapos, Jose Rizal had a girlfriend that time, no? 'Di ba hindi na sila nag-work nung kanyang first love. So mayroon ba naman siya naging girlfriend pa, si Leonor Valenzuela. Pero ito sinasabi ko ngayon ay si Leonor Rivera. So si Leonor Rivera ay naging girlfriend ni Jose Rizal before siya pumunta ng Spain. So ito yung pinaka-tragic niya na love story mo, na pinaka-long time po niya na girlfriend, na because both of them were seeking for the truth. And meron pong mga haka-hakahan na si Leonor Rivera daw ay pinsan ni Jose Rizal. No? Pero medyo malayo na siya na pinsan or kamag-anak. So, pero feeling ko din hindi. Kasi ito kasing mother ni Leonor Rivera, hindi niya sa bed si Rizal. So, hindi niya gusto si Rizal. So, baka hindi talaga siya magkamag-anak, no? So, hindi niya gusto si Rizal as mapangasawa ng kanyang anak, no? So, nung nag-exchange sila ng letters, no, nung nasa Pilipinas pa si Rizal at sila ay nag-uusap ni Leonor Rivera, gumagamit siya ng invisible ink. Okay? Tapos, mababasa lang yun ni Leonor Rivera yung letter na nasa invisible ink kapag dinapat niya sa lampara or sa ilaw, no? So, ganun sila mag-exchange ng letters before para hindi sila mahuli ng kanilang mother. Okay? So, nung nag-upload na si Rizal, hindi alam yun ni Leonor Rivera. So, nag-send si Rizal ng letter kay Leonor at doon nalaman na niya na umalis na nga pala si So, grabe na hurt si Leonor that time. And naging LDR sila. So, dili jud nag-work ang LDR ni Rizal o ni Leonor Rivera because of miscommunication. Hindi dahil malayo sila sa isa't isa, but because the mother of Leonor forbid these letters to reach the two parties. No? So, kapag nag-send si Rizal ng letter kay Leonor Rivera, kinukuha ng mother ni Leonor doon sa postal office mismo. So, before pa siya makarating kay Leonor, kinuha na ng mother niya. Okay? Same as true with Leonor's letter addressed to Rizal. So, wala na yun. Hindi na nakakarating sa isa ang mga letters nila. So, saklap, di ba? Tapos, ikaw, ginadugay-dugayan ng kag-reply, it's a sign. No? So, ayan guys, hindi talaga sila nagkatuloy-tuloy because of the miscommunication. So, akala ni Rizal, Leonor had already abandoned him, and also Leonor thought that she was already abandoned as well by Jose Rizal. So ang ending, hindi sila nagkatuluyan dahil pag uwi ni Rizal dito to ask for Leonor's hand, no? Kasi hindi na siya nagpaparamdam, so ako na mismo pupunta sa kanya. So the first homecoming of Jose Rizal after the publish of The Noli Me Tangere, pagbalik niya dito sa Pilipinas, sinanap niya si Leonor, pero pinigilan siya ng kanyang family. No, wag mo na hanapin si Leonor, diba? Hindi mo na pwede siyang ganyan. Bakit naman? No, kasi nagpakasal na siya sa isang Englishman, engineer Englishman that was chosen by her mother. No, so arranged marriage ang nangyari. So ayun, broken hearted si Rizal and so forth. So very long time yun siya, yung before pa si Rizal na umalis ng Spain, papuntang Spain, hanggang sa nakauwi na lang siya, no? Nakapublish na siya ng novel, sila pa rin yung Leonor. Okay, so medyo hard time yun kay Rizal. After nun, na bumalik si Rizal sa Europe kasi it was not safe for him to stay in the Philippines because the friars were attacking the novel and also Rizal, and his stay here in the Philippines would put the family's safety into danger. Kaya pinalis siya ng Governor General. No? So bumalik si Rizal sa Europe at doon na siya nagkaroon pa ng ibang relationships na naman. No, ibang relationships na with the other girls. No, pero hindi naman yung lahat official. Parang isa lang dalawang official. It was with Nelly Busted, yung crush din ni Juan Luna, no, na hindi alam ni Juan Luna na magpakasal na unta sila ni Rizal. So yan, Nelly Busted, minahal talaga ni Rizal, naging girlfriend and boyfriend talaga sila. And also, the Japanese girl, si Seiko Usui, no? So, like, may girlfriend din po siya sa Japan, no? So, magpakasal na po doon tapos sila. But, no? I mean, perfect naman kayo. Pwede na mag-settle si Rizal dito. Na-meet na niya ang family sa girl. No? Pero, Rizal realized that it was not for him, no? Kasi nga, he was meant to finish his mission in the country. Kaya, bumalik pa rin siya sa Pilipinas para ipaglaban ito, no? So, ayun po. Yan, nasingit lang natin yung about sa kanilang love stories. Kasi nga, I removed from our course outline about sa lovers of Jose Rizal, no? So, ni-remove ko po siya kasi hindi ko na marami kasi mga doon, mga factual lang good. About lang talaga siya sa factual. And I think in the OBE, output-based curriculum, na hindi siya swak, no? Tsaka wala naman din siya doon sa syllabus din ng CHED, na yung sa lovers niya si Rizal. More on values kasi siya. Kaya yun, tinanggal ko na lang talaga. So ayun, some of you kasi, no, yun lang din ang pinunta dito, no, yun lang din ang parang intriguing para sa kanila, yung about sa romances ni Jose Rizal, no, pero you can Google that naman, no, so, ayan, asan na tayo? So, progress had only begun at the end of 1880s, wherein there is a renewal of Spain's university life. Ibig sabihin, no, nawala na yung old system, old stagnant style of teaching. By this time, Filipino students began to arrive in Spain. Ito po yung mga ilustrados natin na nakapag-aral. They were enlightened and they are principalya. Kasi kung hindi sila principalya, they cannot afford, no, to go to Spain. Nag-open na kasi yung Suez Canal this time, so there are some transportations by water na pwede nilang gamitin papunta sa Spain, and they were able to acquire deeper knowledge about the Spanish ways. So it was in 1880s and 1890s when Spain opened its doors to Filipinos. Nag-open na rin po yung Manila-Acapulco trade this time, kaya mas madali para sa mga Pilipino na makapunta ng Spain. Asan ako? Being able to know that Spain at that time, the Filipino students were able to understand the dealings of the Spain's laws and policies in the Philippines. No? So, they were able to grasp already clearer no what is happening in our country, that they were colonized, no, that they were under a tyranny, no, kasi ganito palang pamamaraan ng Spain para sa Pilipinas, no, hindi ito para turuan tayo maging civilized, but to oppress us, no? So, nagiging slave pala tayo under this monarch. So, mas naging clear na sa kanila yung totoo na nangyayari sa Pilipinas. And, they were able to interact more than when they were in the Philippines. Na-remember niyo po ba yung sadula? No, yung sadula, yung punit ng sadula, no, yung kanina, di ba? Yung pagpupunit. Yung sadula po, it limits the movements of the Filipinos back in the Philippines. No? So, you cannot go from one town to another without your sadula being presented. No? So, hindi lang siya basta-basta residence tax before, community tax certificate. It also served as something that will control them, that will signify their subordination, no, it signifies their subordination from Spain. So ideas also pero nung nakapunta na po sila sa Spain, no, mas madali sa kanila to form organizations, to form associations, and also in those associations, ideas became free-flowing. Rejection and evaluation of the abuses of the church and the state in the Philippines were opened in their classes. And the proclamation of liberty had burned the desires of these ilustrados who were awakened to the truths of the Spanish rulings. Hence, the aspiration for independence and Philippine liberty had strengthened, and numerous church dogma were rejected. Kaya at the end of Rizal's life, no, meron tayong tinatawag na meron tayong very controversial na document na tinatawag na the retraction document. Dito daw ni-retract or binawi ni Rizal lahat ng mga sinabi niya at nagbalik loob po siya sa Katolisismo. No? Bakit kaya ganon? Kasi nga itong mga mason na itong brotherhood, itong mga kasama ni Rizal sa propaganda movement, no, na La Solidaridad, na marami silang church dogma na ni-reject, no, na they disagree. Kaya marami sa mga tao, ang pananaw nila sa mga mason o na katulad nito ay mga atheist, no, or mga anti-church, no. So and also maraming tao sa panahon ni Rizal that perceived Rizal as anti-church, no. So ayun po, dahil of their aspiration, no, na-influensyahan na kung ano man ang nabalaan nila dito sa Spain. Okay, so that's just an introduction. So let's go to the meat, which is the propaganda movement. So sabi natin kanina, sa ating first objective, let's discuss the student activism in Spain. Bakit student activism? Kasi Rizal was still a student when he joined the propaganda movement. And he joined the activities, no? Mga activism na mga propaganda or advocacy nitong group na ito. So the extreme abuses of the Spanish government has caused the Filipinos to initiate the revolts and to overthrow the Spanish forces out of the Philippines. Seeking independence from Spain, Filipinos were enraged by the tyranny of the Spaniards. And dito, bakit sila nag-start ng propaganda movement na mention po dito? The public execution of the three priests known as the Gumburza marked the beginning of the propaganda movement intended to attain independence from Spain. So, yung event pala na yun, yung paggarote sa Gumburza, it was the starting point, no, of why do they wanted to pursue this independence advocacy, this campaign, no, this propaganda. So yun po yung pinaka-starting point nila. So such movement called for reforms in the political, economic, and social setup of the country. Okay? So nung prelim period, di ba nag-discuss tayo ng 19th century Philippine setting, no? Nag-discuss natin yung political, social, and also education. Kasi ito yung mga aspeto na hindi natin na-mention yung economic, pero kasali siya sa social. So, ito kasi ng mga aspeto, ito yung mga problematic na mga aspect sa Philippine society. Ito yung pinaka nahihirapan na aspeto para sa mga Pilipino. Hirap tayo sa politika dahil wala tayong posisyon sa politics aside from the gobernadorcillo and the cabeza de barangay, the smallest unit. Also in the social because the native Filipinos ranked very low, ranked the lowest in the social structure. And lastly, the education, no? As economic naman, mahirap talagang buhay. Yun na yun, no? So, and also sa economic ay kay mataas ang taxes natin, and only we, the Filipinos, are paying the taxes, no? And these taxes are unreasonably very high, no? It's higher than what we earn. So, ang matira sa Pilipino that time, wala na jud. Gutom jud kay siya. So, mangutang siya sa encomendero or sa manager of the land. So, mabaon sa utang ang Pilipino. Kay mas gamay man ang iyahang gina-earn kaysa sa iyahang ginabayad. Sa iyahang dapat bayaran guy. So, wala na siya mabilin sa iyang self. So, there is economic challenge as well. So, and also, in education. So, yun po yung discuss ko last prelim. Kasi, ito po yung gusto i-address ng ating mga propaganda movement. Such as the Last Solidaridad. Itong propaganda movement na ginamit nato diri sa reading nato. Okay, so let me introduce to you two of the leaders, no, sa ating propaganda movement. The first one was Marcelo H Del Pilar. So he was a lawyer, a mason, a pamphleteer, and he was one of the voices and leaders of the peaceful reform movement. So with his brother, exiled in Guam in 1872, he desired to uplift the welfare of his countrymen through preaching about work and self-dignity in public places. So, as a radical thinker, his ways were condemned by the Spanish government and he was forced to flee to Spain, where he collaborated with the other reformists there. So, Marcelo H. Del Pilar also took over the editorship of the La Solidaridad after Graciano Lopez Haina. So, ito po si Marcelo H. Del Pilar, no? Pinatapon po siya from Philippines punta sa Spain. And also together with this, dahil nga hindi agree yung mga Spaniard sa ginagawa ni Marcelo H. Del Pilar. So, anything po that will trigger the anger, no? That will trigger the disgust of the Spaniards, ipapatapon ka talaga. Especially if it will also stimulate revolt, no, from the people. So, para maiwasan na magbuo yung revolt at para mas maiwasan na merong maimpluwensyahan sa ginagawa ni Marcelo H. Del Pilar, pinatapon nila si Marcelo sa Spain. Katulad ng ginawa nila sa isa pang member ng ating propaganda movement, who was Graciano Lopez Haina. So, ganun din po yung ginawa ni Graciano Lopez Haina. Gumawa rin po siya ng isang bagay na makakagalit sa mga Spaniard. So, what did he do? No? Another prominent leader named Graciano Lopez Haina mocked the friars' corrupt practices through his work Fray Butod. No? Fray Batod or Fray Butod. So, alam niyo yung butod, no? Butod banta, no? Pero ako tagpian, no? So sa fray butod po, ibig sabihin po ng fray, sa panahon nila, ibig sabihin fraile, no? Or friar. So, fray butod. This literary masterpiece humiliated the power-hungry friars and their immoral conducts. Okay, so, kaya malaking tiyan kasi matakaw sa power, no, and also very immoral, no, kasi nga yung pagiging matakaw, gluttony is a sin, no. So yeah, Fray Botod used that image, no, that symbolism to portray or to relay, no, to the public the message of how corrupt the friars were, no. And I think that is also the idea of Jose Rizal, but Jose Rizal has used lang some literary work to that, no. Pero yung sa Fray Butod Manggod, it's very direct, no. And it was the reason why he was arrested. So, pinatapon po siya from Philippines papunta ng Spain. Akala ng Spain, it was a good strategy for them para hindi kumalat yung ideas ng mga ilustrados na ito. Pero, it was a good opportunity, no, for the ilustrados to meet together dito as a Spain. As time went by, the number of reformists has increased and was later on joined by Filipino reformists coming from Spain. So, yung mga reformists na coming from Spain at not coming from the Philippines. Sila po yung mga illustrators na pumunta sa Spain para mag-aral. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila naging reformist dahil galing sila sa Pilipinas, no, pinatapon sa Spain. So, naging reformist po sila kasi nasa Spain na sila daan dahil nag-aaral sila. Katulad ni Jose Rizal. Si Jose Rizal, no, nag-aaral na siya sa Spain, and when he found out about the La Solidaridad, he joined in together with Felix Resurrection Hidalgo and also the two Luna brothers, si Antonio at saka si Juan Luna. So, doon po sila naging magkagrupo. When we were elementary or when we were in high school, akala natin itong mga tao na to, iba-iba sila ng ginawa sa istorya natin. Yes naman, iba-iba naman talaga sila ng contribution sa ating bansa. Pero, ngayon lang natin nalaman na iisang grupo lang pala sila. Sila pala, lahat ay miyembro ng La Solidaridad. No, alam natin, or kilala natin si Graciano Lopez Haina, si Marcelo H Del Pilar. But when we were in elementary, we just see bullets. No, yung mga bullets lang, information about them. And at the end of the day, we will tend to forget about them. Why? Because there is no synthesis in there. No, there is no value and there is no significance in there. No, ano ba talaga yung nagawa nila para sa bayan natin? Most of the discussions were just about their literary piece. Though their contribution naman talaga is literary piece, but what is it for? No, para saan ba yun? So, hindi siya na-emphasize. So, here, hope that you will still remember and you get it, no? You get the significance of it. So, they all are writers, no? So, they contributed to the group, no? La Solidaridad, which also became its newspaper, no? And it will lead us to the next paragraph. So, yung grupo po nila, ang tawag doon sa grupo nila ay La Solidaridad. Yung La Solidaridad na yun, dahil lahat sila ay writers, maybe the medium that they would use is newspaper. So, isa sa mga member nila ay si Pablo Rianzares. Si Pablo Rianzares ay meron siyang printing press doon sa Spain. Na meron siyang printing press. So, it was achieved, no? I mean, the establishment of the La Solidaridad was achieved through the help of Pablo Rianzares' printing press, and it became the newspaper of the reformists. So, yung grupo nila ay La Solidaridad at yung newspaper itself is La Solidaridad. Okay? So, these writers had used pseudonyms or pen names in writing in the newspaper. Si Rizal, ang ginamit niya po ay Dimasalang at Laong Laan. Pag sinabi natin Dimasalang, it ungraspable. Okay? So, and also others had used their pseudonyms, no? Si Marcelo kay Plaridel, Antonio Luna taga Ilog, Mariano Ponce Kalipulaco, Naning, and Tikbalang, no? So, and others pa. So, you don't need to memorize all of this. So, next, according to Teodoro Agoncillo, the following were among the main demands of our reformists. No, ano ba yung gusto nilang gawin? Ano ba yung gusto nilang makamit at the end of the day? No, bakit nila ginawa itong, bakit nila in-establish itong propaganda movement na ito at itong newspaper na ito? So, number one, they wanted fairness among Filipinos before the law. Gusto nila pantay-pantay yung imposition ng law. Especially Rizal, that he experienced injustice in their family. No, hindi pantay yung pag-impose ng batas doon sa mother niya at doon sa nagkasala niyang tita, no? So, next is assimilation of the Philippines as a regular province of Spain. So, gusto nila ma-free ang Philippines from the hands of the Spaniards, restoration of the Philippine representation in the Cortes, Philippinization of the Philippine Church, dahil nga lahat ng mga pare ay mga Espanyol, no? Paano yung mga Pilipino? Hindi ba tayo pwedeng maging clergy? And lastly is the granting of individual liberties, yung mga karapatan na hindi natin na-enjoy in the Philippines before. So, such as the freedom of speech and freedom of press. So, hindi po sila pwedeng mag-publish ng anything that will go against the government or any expression that may change the image of the government sa pangamata ng mga masa. Okay, unlike ngayon, mayroon tayong freedom of the press, no? Especially in the editorial cartoon. The editorial cartoon can really be offensive, no? If the politician, you are the subject of the cartoon, no? So it is very sometimes offensive, no? So sino ba mga dito cartoonist? So, di ba, sometimes very offensive talaga. So, association. So, hindi sila pwede magbuo ng mga groups before. That's why the Katipunan was a secret society, secret government siya kasi bawal nga yun. And lastly, the redress of grievances. Wala po silang democracy to speak about their minds before. Unlike today, that people, especially the youth, no, they are very empowered to speak their minds and to present their grievances and to present their disappointments, no? Kahit hindi naman talaga relevant, so present pa rin. Maybe it's a lesson that we should learn na hindi natin i-abuse ba the rights that were given to us, no? Yung mga rights na na-win natin because of this propagandist. So let's not abuse those rights. Let's use them wisely. So let's now focus with the La Solidaridad. Malapit na pala tayo matapos o dalawang topic na lang. So, yan. Bilisan ko na lang. So sa La Solidaridad, no? Fast forward natin ito. Ayan, dito tayo focus sa La Solidaridad. So La Solidaridad was an organ of the patriotic society established by the Filipino expatriates, no, in Barcelona, Spain. So what is the aim of the newspaper? Kanina ang pinag-usapan natin is yung organization. Ngayon naman ito sa newspaper. So, number 1, to work peacefully for political and social reform. So, ito po yung naging influence kay Rizal na kanilang propaganda movement, no? Si Rizal, when he worked, no, for his campaign, no, sa iyang novel nga gibuhos tanan, no, he worked peacefully, though the purpose of his novel was for political and social reform as well as in educational reform, na pagbabago ng sistema ng education. He did it peacefully, no, through his pen. Unlike the revolutionary groups, no, naggusto gid nila magpaglaban na malalapo-lapo, no. So Rizal worked peacefully. Next is to portray the deplorable conditions of the Philippines and for the Spain to remedy them. Dahil ang Spain naman ang may kagagawan, gusto din ng La Solidaridad na yung mga sinusulat nila, it will make the Spaniards reflect that they need to remedy those illnesses, no, those social ills na meron sa bansa natin dahil sa kanila. Okay? And third is to oppose the evil sources of reaction and medievalism, to advocate liberal ideas and progress, because this all happened in the medieval period wherein people are not liberal, no? They are dependent they are so loyal to the monarch system that liberal ideas and liberal progress, no, cannot intervene, not among the people. So they are not liberal minded, no, they are traditional minded ba, no, monarch talaga ang kanilang sistema. And lastly, to champion the legitimate aspirations of the Filipinos to life, democracy, and happiness. No, these things that were exploited among the Filipinos. Ngayon, naging successful naman po ang propaganda movement, pero mayroon po silang challenge, no, na mga challenges na na-encounter, kaya nag-fail po sila. Okay, hindi po naging successful ang propaganda in a sense that they did not last long. But they are successful in their missions, no? Yun lang, hindi sila nag-success sa pag-last long. So, paano nga ba nag-end ang propaganda movement? Bakit sila nagkawatak-watak, no? Bakit hindi na patuloy yung movement na ito? Despite of their beautiful and freeing ba, no, freeing na movement, No? So, the failure of the reformist propaganda movement was caused by numerous reasons. Number one, take note of that. Number one, Spain's internal problems left them without ears to listen to the propagandist platforms and requests, which were published in the Last Solidaridad. Not just that, but also to the King of Spain. They had asked the King of Spain. They have wrote to the King of Spain and presented their agonies for our country no na ganito nangyayari sa ating bansa. But the king did not listen to them because the Spain also had its own agenda that it cannot resolve. No? Napos sila mga problema, dili nila kayang i-resolve among themselves. Kaya they cannot hear out the issues that were in their colonies. Okay? Second reason is that all the parishes blocked all outbreaks of the reformists through the Philippine newspaper owned by the friars La Politica de España and Filipinas. So, hindi lang po sa Spain na papublish yung La Solidaridad, but also in the Philippines, not para maghihikayat sa mga Pilipino, pero lahat ng yun ay pinigilan ng mga nega, ng mga parishes. Okay? So, dili sila gusto na ma-impluwensyahan ng mga Pilipino because it may lose the respect. Okay? And third is sila mismo, okay? Yung mga miyembro mismo, yung mga propagandist mismo, hindi sila nagkaisa, no? Hindi sila nagkaisa, kaya hindi naging successful yung propaganda movement. Nag-aaway sila dahil dito, they quarreled on who would lead the propaganda movement, and also they have conflicting ideas. Nagkaroon kasi sila ng election into who will be the leader of the propaganda movement. So there is this rival between Jose Rizal and Marcelo H Del Pilar. Some reformists would like Marcelo H Del Pilar to be the leader because he also wanted to, and Jose Rizal, though he don't want to be the leader, many of the reformists wanted him to be the leader. Kaya nagkaroon sila ng votation. So, nung malapit na talaga manalo si Rizal, nung malapit na siya, winning na talaga yung kanyang standing sa votation, he decided to end the votation and give the position to Marcelo H. Del Pilar because he said, no, hindi daw sila meant to be divided, no? Kasi pag nag-vote sila kung sinong leader, it's like dividing the people. No? We are dividing the people of this propaganda movement. The drama kay siya, no? We are dividing the people of this propaganda movement. Kaya, ibibigay ko na lang kay Marcelo H. Del Pilar ang leadership. And that's how Marcelo H. Del Pilar became the leader of the propaganda movement and not Jose Rizal. Okay? So, yeah. At dahil doon, mas tumaas ang kanilang tensyon. Ay, ganyan pala, ay, ayaw namin, ganyan. So, mas naging disunited ang La Solidaridad. Lastly, unavailability of funds had limited the propaganda movement activities in Europe, which led to its failure. Okay, so yun po yung apat na rason kung bakit nag-fail ang propaganda movement. But at some point, it also gained some success, but we will discuss that after we end this conference, and let's return using the same link and the same meeting ID for the last time. So let's resume, last na to for the last time. Okay, so at some point, kahit naman nag-fail ang propaganda movement, because of its, failure to continue ba, pero mayroon silang success dahil, successful pa rin sila dahil they have achieved their goals, no? They have achieved the demands, no, of the La Solidaridad as well as the newspaper, some of it, no? And dahil yun sa pagkikayat nila sa mga Pilipino, no? They have succeed in, sabi dito, promulgating ideas used in its battle for reforms, no? So naging successful sila doon sa mga ideologies na meron sila, doon sa mga ideas and ideals na meron sila. So the propagandists served as a voice for many voiceless Filipinos who suffered from the cruelty of the Spaniards. And also, they succeeded in expressing the extreme emotions felt by the abused Filipinos, and such was done by putting experiences into words. Dahil lahat po nga po sila ay manunulat. No, magagaling po sila ng manunulat, that they have creatively and effectively portrayed, no, what the people, and also they have written, no, what the people would really want to speak about, no, what the people wanted to speak out, no, in their experiences dun sila sa nandito sila sa Pilipinas. So the propagandists used their skills and talents to promote the rights that Filipinos should have, which were long deprived from them by the colonizers. The movement had also touch the men and women to rise up and carry firearms to defend themselves from countless abuses. At some point, such effort of the propaganda movement had brought unity to the Filipinos. So, you see, let us be like that, no? May this be our aspiration and inspiration, that you will be using our talents for the benefits of others, that we will become a blessing to them, no? Hindi man tayo kasing galing manulat ng mga propagandist, but we also have our own gifts, no? Some of us are excellent singers, or could dance, could paint, could write, could speak, no? Some of you are maybe gifted in speaking, no? So use that talent for nation building. Di ba naglasan tayo about nationalism and nation building? So use that. Katulad ng mga propagandist natin, hindi naman sila magaling sumayaw, hindi naman sila teachers, no? Hindi naman sila medical professionals lahat. Pero all of them got talent and skills that they are more than willing to offer and to share to help the nation in nation building. So, let us be like that, no? Especially kapag nasa field na tayo, no? Hindi man tayo magsusulat para sa bayan, pero I know that you will be, no? You will really be carry the most significant roles, no, in the society of your of our own generation. Okay, so hopefully that in this batch, no, you may not all become medical technologists or midwives or physical therapists, but at the end of the day, I believe that you will all contribute to our society, no, in the future. You will be effective members of the society, and you will make Mother Philippines very proud, no? So ayan, so may all of us be inspired by the propagandists. So hindi man sila nag-succeed dahil naging disunited sila, but they have succeeded in uniting the Filipinos. Sabi dito sa last line, at some point, such effort of the propaganda movement brought unity to the Filipinos, that even in their disunity, they have united the nation. So lastly, no, ano ba yung pinaka-manifested na effect ng propaganda movement sa mga Pilipino sa Pilipinas? As time passed by, the word revolt knocked on the hearts of the Filipino reformists. They later became revolutionaries, no? From the word revolt, naging revolutionaries, no? Who totally sought to overthrow the Spanish regime, and the followers of this regime, just like Andres Bonifacio, excuse the excessive S, kasi naging dress na siyang damit. So Andres Bonifacio, hindi po siya Andres na walang dress, ha? Andres, no? Andres without the other S po yan. Okay? Emilio Aguinaldo and the other, no, historical icons natin. Hindi lang po sila dahil heroes natin sila, no? Na-inspired po sila ng propaganda movement. So we may say that as we get inspired by these people, no? Kung tayo mismo na-inspire ng mga tao nito and we became like them, many people who will be observing us, no, many other people will also do the same, no, they will also adore us, and they will also admire us, no? Kapag naging ideas din po tayo sa ating mga ginagawa, no? Not just for ourselves, for our family, but majorly for our nation. Okay, so always ko pinaparemind sa inyo when you work, in the future, no, always do it, no, for the patient, because that patient is a Filipino. So therefore, you are doing that for the Filipino nation. No, you can still be the Rizal of your own generation. So much for that. No, that ends our lesson for this morning for the week 8. No, very short na ata sa week 9. Ayan, isang topic lang sa week 9, very short. Okay, so with that, no, let's end our class. Do you have any question before we end? Can we all open our webcams while preparing for our monitoring? Okay, may questions ba? If none, can we all open our webcam so that we can now have our lunch? Lang ha, kasi may ating computer.